Welcome to Cloud-Based Bedtime Stories with Aaron Wanjala. You made it through the day. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let tonight's story find you. Nothing is paging. We can just read. Tonight, we journey to a quiet place of infinite rows and columns. We travel to the Great Library, which in our world is known as BigQuery. It is a vast, silent archive where petabytes of history rest in perfect order, waiting to answer the heaviest questions in the space of a single breath. Let the weight of your day lift as we wander through its cool stone corridors and listen to the steady, rhythmic work of its scribes. Chapter 1: The Valley of the Scribes and the Tower of the Scholars. Let us imagine a valley of incredible size, flanked by two distinct structures. On the valley floor lies the vault of storage. Here, millions of scrolls are kept in deep, cool stone drawers. They never move, and they never tire. High above the valley, resting on the cliffside, is the Tower of Compute. This is where the scholars sit with their desks, formulating questions. In traditional libraries of old, the scholars lived in the very same rooms where the scrolls were stored. If too many scholars gathered to read, they would bump into each other, blocking the aisles. If a scribe tried to file a new batch of scrolls, they would get in the way of someone trying to read. It was a constant struggle for space, light, and quiet. But in the Great Library of BigQuery, these two worlds are entirely separate. The scribes write and organize on the valley floor, while the scholars think and calculate up in the tower. They communicate across the distance using a river of starlight, a network of unimaginable speed, carrying millions of thoughts back and forth every second. Because they are separate, the library can grow its storage indefinitely without ever needing to build more desks for scholars. And if a sudden wave of thousands of scholars arrives with difficult questions, the tower simply conjures temporary desks out of thin air, using as much mental energy as needed for a brief moment, and then letting those desks vanish when the questions are answered. You do not need to build, sweep, or maintain these desks yourself. The library takes care of it all while you sleep, letting you focus entirely on the questions you wish to ask. Chapter 2: The Art of the Columnar Scroll. Let us walk closer to the shelves and see how the scrolls are written. In a simple village register, a scribe might write a person's name, then their age, then their favorite color, all on one single line. If you wanted to find the average age of everyone in the village, you would have to read every single line, scanning past the names and colors just to find the numbers. The Great Library does things differently. It uses a method called columnar storage. Imagine that instead of writing entire lives on a single page, the scribes keep separate scrolls. One scroll contains nothing but names in a long, unbroken list. Another scroll, stored in a neighboring slot, contains only ages. A third contains only colors. When a scholar comes to the library and asks, "What is the average age of our citizens?" they do not need to pull down the massive, heavy books of names or colors. They reach only for the slender, lightweight scroll of ages. Because they only read the exact column they need, their work is completed in a fraction of a second, even if there are millions of citizens in the registry. Yet, despite this separation, the library is bound by a strict set of laws known as ACID transactions. If a new citizen joins the village, their name, age, and color are written to all the correct scrolls at the exact same moment. The records are always complete, always truthful, and never half-written. The library ensures that every story told by the scrolls is perfectly accurate, replicated across multiple quiet chambers, so that even if a lamp is knocked over in one room, the copy in the next room remains safe and clear. Chapter 3: The Two Streams of Knowledge. How does the knowledge find its way into the library? It travels along two peaceful paths. The first path is the great conveyor belt, which we call batch loading. At regular intervals, perhaps when the moon is high, great wooden crates arrive at the library gates. These crates are filled with neatly organized bundles of files. They might be in the language of Parquet, or Avro, or simple, clear JSON. The scribes lift these crates, organize their contents, and file them away in perfect columns. It is a methodical, steady process that happens quietly in the background. The second path is the whispering pipe, known to the engineers as the Storage Write API. Along this path, there are no heavy crates. Instead, a steady stream of individual words floats into the library like autumn leaves drifting down a creek. As soon as an event happens somewhere in the kingdom, a merchant sells a loaf of bread, a traveler crosses a bridge, a tiny whisper travels down the pipe. The scribes listen and write it down instantly, letting the scrolls grow longer, row by row, in real time. Scholars can ask questions about things that happened only seconds ago, reading the ink while it is still slightly wet. Chapter 4: Looking Beyond the Walls. Sometimes, a scholar needs to answer a question using information that does not live inside the great library. Perhaps the data rests in a neighboring archive, like the high-speed scrolls of Cloud Spanner, the simple storage chests of Cloud Storage, or even a modest handwritten ledger in Google Sheets. In the old days, a scholar would have to pack their bags, travel to those places, copy the data into a heavy satchel, and bring it back to the library. But the Great Library has windows that look out across the entire kingdom. Through what we call federated queries and external tables, a scholar can stand at their desk in the tower and peer through a magical spyglass. They can read the ledger sitting on a merchant's desk miles away, or scan the files resting in the cloud storage chests, and combine that information with the scrolls in their own archive. The data remains where it is, undisturbed and peaceful, yet its answers flow quietly and without effort into the scholar's final notebook. Chapter 5: The Owl on the Shoulder. As the library grew larger and the scrolls multiplied into the billions, some scholars found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer volume of choices. They would stand in the aisles, wondering which column to pull or how to phrase their questions in the structured language of SQL. To help them, the library introduced a quiet companion, a clockwork owl named Gemini. This owl sits softly on the scholar's shoulder. It does not speak in a loud or demanding voice. Instead, it listens to what the scholar is trying to achieve. If a scholar whispers, "Show me how our library's records have changed over the winter," the owl gently dips its quill and writes out the perfect SQL query on the parchment. If a scholar encounters an ancient, complex query written by someone else long ago, they can show it to the owl. With a soft click of its gears, the owl explains the query in plain, simple words, tracing the path of the data from the storage drawers to the final answer. It can even suggest rules for translating older library dialects into the modern standard language of the library. With the owl's quiet guidance, the daunting task of sorting through petabytes of information becomes as peaceful as reading a storybook by the fireplace. Chapter 6. The Keeper of the Keys. A library of such size must be kept secure, so that everyone may rest easily, knowing their secrets are safe. At the entrance of every aisle stands the Keeper of the Keys, governed by identity and access management. The Keeper knows every scholar by name and knows exactly which parts of the library they are allowed to visit. Security here is not a simple gate at the front door. It is elegant and precise. A scholar might be allowed to enter the room of financial scrolls, but they may only be permitted to see certain columns. Perhaps they can view the transaction amounts, but the names of the merchants are hidden from their sight. Or they might only see rows that pertain to their own home province, while the rest of the scroll remains gently veiled. This careful governance is managed by the Knowledge Catalog, a unified map that catalogs every asset, every column, and every lineage, showing exactly where a piece of information came from and who has touched it. It ensures that the library remains a place of trust, order, and absolute quiet. As our journey through the library comes to an end, the scholars in the tower put down their quills. The temporary desks fade back into the quiet air. Down in the valley, the scribes gently close the stone drawers, and the starlight river slows to a soft, steady hum. The scrolls are safe, the records are complete, and the vast, beautiful archive of BigQuery rests under a blanket of stars. That's all for this journey through the cloud. Wherever your clusters reside tonight, may they remain stable, resilient, and peaceful. Until next time, sleep tight until you have to serve your next request.